Hello everyone, Carlos here again. Today's topic will be democracy. We've been seeing lately, with culminating with Brexit, a total disdain and disregard for the democratic processes that we should have. It's our ideal. The Western ideal is democracy. Democracy, as mostly of anyone doesn't know, basically developed in the 5th century in Athens, where the people, the, the demos, would yield power, the krasi. Um, this ideal is fine, but it's not the same democracy that we have now. In fact, the modern democracy is basically a 20th century, early 20th century, late 19th century invention, because until then, the people that voted were either the wealthy landowners, the people in power, and anyone who had an education. It was only in the early parts of the 20th century that democracy has expanded to include everyone. I mean, everyone, even including women. So that's a concept that democracy is fluid in time, and it's also fluid in terms of how it's applied, because even modern uh, dictatorships. I'll give the example of Salazar in Portugal, um, even Hitler in his early years, Mussolini, Franco. We had the Eastern Bloc countries. They practiced a false form of democracy where people would vote. In fact, they even adopted the word democracy in their titles. You have in North Korea the People's Democratic Republic of of Korea, in which is basically a oxymoron because they are not a democracy. Now, we've been seeing from institutions like the European Union, directed against its member states, that disdain, a total disrespect for people's what the people's wishes are when they vote. We've had plebiscites ranging from Holland a few years back, where they didn't. They went. The people of Holland rejected an expansion of the European
Yeah,
Union.
2005.
Thank you, Abe. 2005, the people of Holland rejected the expansion of the European Union, but the European Union just disregarded it totally. Um, more closer to our times, we see Brexit. The people voted to leave. The European Union jumped on, threatening them that they would install sanctions, all sorts of threats. The media has jumped on this bandwagon. We've had the Remain groups basically not accept the majority rule, the majority decision. We also had for example, in Portugal and Spain, the European Union wants to install sanctions because they failed to to qualify to fix the excessive deficit, but these two countries have an excess in their deficit due to European Union policies, which they, especially Portugal, adopted to the letter under the Social Democrats, the right-wing party. And now we are discussing here in Portugal whether one party, basically the leftist bloc, whether we should have the referendum to leave Europe. It's the only party that's even remotely hinted at that. And movements such as the movements such as third wave feminism, SJWs, cultural Marxists, or as Abe likes to say, postmodernism,
Well,
have tried to basically be a mechanism where they erode our democratic rights, the majority rule, which basically is playing in the hands of big businesses, banks, and even governments. We can call those groups basically useful idiots.
Yeah.
And, so, what do you guys think?
If I may,
How can we?
if I may,
Yes, go on, Ed.
I have 4 points. You're saying North Korea, for instance, or whatever, is a false democracy. So what is false democracy? Next, you're saying all these referenda and whatever, the majority says so. We have a point to discuss if 52% is the same as 2/3 or as 75%. The third thing is Portugal is representing humanity, and it doesn't fit with Europe. And the fourth thing, we already suffer political economics, not only in the last 40, 50 years, but also for more than 2 millennia. We suffer on Romanesque political warlike economics.
Okay, you want me to answer those?
Yeah, there are 4 points which I want to say in regard to what you were saying.
Okay. A false democracy is where the people vote and then you have 100%, 98% voting in favor of the only party that you have ruling.
Why?
Because it's the only party that you have ruling, and they force people to vote.
That doesn't mean it is a false democracy.
It is.
You can have a democracy where 98% of the people are voting without tyrannizing.
But you have more than one party.
It's
like say, I'll give you an analogy.
You can only
I'll give you an analogy.
Democracy with more than one party.
I'll give you an analogy. You go into a coffee shop, right, and you ask for a cappuccino, and the person behind there says, "No, we only have espresso." And you say, "No, I want a cappuccino." "No, I'll have an espresso." Okay, she gives you a cappuccino. No, she gives you an espresso. Sorry, and you say, "Okay, thank you."
Yeah, but consumerism is not democracy.
No, it's not. It's you have one choice.
No,
and we won't get into this. We won't. Abe.
If you're a baker, if you're a baker and you don't.
Abe, I won't go into semantics or anything. That's what false democracy
I don't want to induce with examples.
I've gave you
an example. I can give you.
Abe, that question is asked about what a false democracy is. Now, 2/3 and 52% is the same if you have a majority. You can have a majority of 1, and it's valid. A majority is a majority, whether it's 1 or 99. It's a majority. There's no equivalence between that. And the Portuguese example, the government, the social democratic government, did everything that the European Union asked them to do. They still had a deficit, and now because of the Socialist Party is in power, they probably are trying to punish that socialist government because the majority of the European Union members of the political membership, the ones that rule, are social democrats.
You made your point.
Thank you.
Third one.
Yes. Brit, Christine, any of your views, please?
I know, just making me think about my dad this morning. He got into a bit of an altercation with a friend of his by email. Now, this friend of his is one of our lefty liberal lovies. wouldn't know, wouldn't care about sort of bad things happening unless it happens to him.
So
In which
careless.
case it doesn't happen, and it doesn't matter. But my dad is was sort of saying to him, it doesn't matter what you think, I think what I think. And then the friend starts coming back, getting personal and getting back to him, saying things like, well, anyone who voted Leave was a racist and all that sort of thing, all the xenophobia and all that shit. And then the last thing he says is, what kind of father are you? And that's when Dad sort of thought, because the Dad had said, because he had said about, being racist for, being against foreigners and all that sort of shit.
What is being
And then my dad sort of thinks, my parents would take my German mother would take exception to that, and my Portuguese wife would take exception to that too. And the friend knows full well that he's not against foreigners or anything like that nonsense. But he's so hysterical that that's what he can't think anything else. And so he comes back with saying, what kind of a father are you? And
so democracy is about feelings.
Yeah, pretty much. It brings me back to a quote that, although in the context when it was written doesn't make sense, but in this context, but of itself, it makes sense. By I think Benjamin Franklin, I think it was. Yes, I think it was Benjamin
But
Franklin.
maybe pathological feelings are an insane reality.
Yeah, he said.
Trying to make a point, Ad. Listen to her.
Sorry.
Okay.
The quote was, those who sacrifice liberty for security deserve neither. And that, I think,
How
pretty
does
much sums up.
liberty relate to freedom?
Say again, sorry? I didn't hear that quick.
How does liberty relate to freedom? Hey, Red.
Hello, Red and Nicholas.
Hi, Red.
Hello. And Nicholas, hi.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Yeah, bigot.
Liberty and freedom are basically synonymous.
No,
Yeah, they're the
not at
same
all.
thing.
Not at all.
I said
Yes, it is actually. The thing, it reminds me of another discussion I had. I think it's 2.5 months ago, maybe even 3 months ago, I had with Crowd on one of his streams. And I talked about how some ideologies.
Yeah,
I don't belong to any ideology myself. I think all ideologies are flawed. But that being said, some ideologies are more democratic than others. So you can't escape that fact. And yeah, liberalism is in fact responsible for most of the parliaments that we have in the world today. It was liberalism as an ideology that brought about political democracy.
Yes, and besides, even in the most basic thing, liberty actually comes from Latin meaning, and it also means freedom simply.
Mm.
Exactly, yes.
So yeah, it's just that these people are willing to sacrifice their own, freedom, no matter what it is, as long as they feel safe, as long as they think they feel safe, as long as they are think they are doing it for the sake of safety, even if they're not.
No, they're doing
not
it to
really.
give up responsibility, because freedom also requires responsibility, and a nanny state with so-called protects you. It strips you of freedom, but it strips you of any responsibilities.
Yeah, because that would be because they're afraid that they were so afraid of
everything under control.
The unknown. Being afraid of the unknown.
They're afraid of being adults, pretty much.
Basically.
I mean, you for fuck's sake, you have hipster daycare, and that's actually a thing. No. Let me show you a link. Let me show you a link. Actually, I'm going to show you.
All these postmodern mind control things as if reasonable. Fuck.
I think a big
liberty doesn't equal freedom.
You were saying, Nick?
Yeah, I was going to say that I think a big reason that, you know, this modern form of progressive liberalism that is anti-democratic and it wants, you know, rigid authoritarian structures to both provide and decide for them comes a lot from the fact that, you know, this generation was raised in an era of stranger danger and in an era of paranoia, and the parents didn't let them do the kinds of things like my generation did, which is, you know, just go off for the day with your friends. You'd go riding your bike. Alone. Yeah, you'd go riding your bike around the neighborhood, and you'd know where everyone was because all their bikes would be piled up on someone's front lawn, so you just show up. Now, these days, and this generation that's coming out of college now especially, they were raised with play dates. They were raised with everything structured for them, and they had activities, and they also lack a certain amount of social grace because everything was regimented, and also because a lot of them, if they weren't raised in single-parent households, they were raised in dual-income households. So at the same time, there's no parents really there, and they're raised by social media, and they're raised by media in general with this rigid structure all around them. And so that's all they know.
And so now they're walking out into the real world after they leave university, most of them.
And they don't want it.
Because I think they dread it, and I kind of know the feeling because there was a time when I felt like that. I really sort of thought, holy Christ, I'm going to really, you know, what the hell do I do? You know, it's really sort of just what do I do? How do I take it? You know,
yeah, but by the way, I just want to show this article because this shit is actually real. It's hard to believe, but it's
in America.
See your screen, Sandre.
So do you see? Okay, I'm gonna show here. Adult preschool charges hipsters to take naps, play with glitter glue. Students at the world's first adult preschool pay up to $999 for a month-long course that includes nap time.
Oh dear.
This is real. This is fucking real.
Yeah, everything is real.
Could I just also share a I keep mentioning this, but it's the front cover of the Daily Mirror during the time when all the Brexit crap was going on.
Yes.
They pretty much summed up what the main crowd, what these kind of insane liberal sort of people who haven't goddamn bloody lived properly, what they feared about, you know, about the unknown, essentially, not being able to know exactly, not being able to have the guts to fight out. Let me share 1 second. There we go. That's what it says. It says, for your family, for your children, for your pension, for your pay packet, for your jobs in the NHS, don't take a leap into the dark. Vote Remain today. And that's a black hole, or a hole.
Yeah. And you know what? That's the thing. Those kids.
That's how they
don't know. They don't know.
Those kids are just too young.
Hey, wait. Let me say what I need to say. They don't know adapting to what government demands of you, what is expected of you, is the dark gap.
Those kids just don't remember a time before the European Union, which is retarded. And the second thing is, you know what? I'm actually happy that my parents basically abandoned me at 13.
Don't take it personal, please. It's not about your parents.
No, I mean, what do my parents have to do with it? I'm saying that the fact they basically left me to myself at 13 taught me bloody independence.
Let's talk about this without your personal things.
You know, it's very ironic that Ad, out of all the people, claim that someone isn't on topic.
Yes.
I don't say they're not on topic.
I'm saying this in a way that children aren't taught independence anymore.
I say it's done personal. It isn't personal.
And that's why they act the way they do.
It's about feelings, and we should have a system.
I will. If please don't interrupt. And one at a time. Come on. We're going well. We're seeing why some of the
ask other guests if they are compromised with my interruption.
No, you can just let them speak, man. Jeez.
Hey, I let them speak and let me speak too.
You will have a chance. You have been having a chance.
I don't understand. I'm not trolling. I'm not fucking. I'm just.
Okay. Let's get back on topic.
I'm joining this conversation.
Yes. We're talking that I think I was the last. I remember growing up, we didn't have that. I was prepared in Australia. Growing up in Australia, I was prepared. I know my cousins are not as prepared. Either they didn't get a good education because they just didn't paid enough in class, paid enough attention in class, or they basically just abandoned and they're working. Most of them are working as construction workers or stuff like that. Here, where I live, we don't have any social justice warriors interrupting our universities. I've said this before, and I'll stop saying it again. But my two kids are prepared for life. My daughter's working, and my son is prepared for what's coming up. Well, when I see articles that you just posted, Brit and Sandre, the bloody adults needing to be cuddled like bloody 5-year-olds.
Yeah.
That's.
I have a proposition.
Let me just finish. They are the tools that are used by the media. The media is manipulating many people, even though the SJWs don't think they are. They are being manipulated by a media, directing them in a certain direction. I can see the direction. It's a sort of an authoritarian oligarchy. Banks, the financial sector, and etc. They are being led to force their way into that direction, and they are just folding down. How the hell does a leftist Marxist want to stay in the authoritarian organization that is the European Union? That's totally shit. It's totally opposite of what they should believe in.
Yeah, and here you do it. What was my proposition is, whenever you say something related to this hangout, you want to be talking about democracy.
But we are talking about answer the question, mate, or I'll kick you, man.
How all these things relate to democracy? Okay, so if anyone...
I'm sorry, I'll have to eject you, man.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, God, come on.
God.
Oh, yes, thank you, Carlos.
I hate doing this. I don't want to do that, but
no. I see you, Carlos. Okay, and the thing is, I don't know if you've seen one of my streams, but on one of my streams in season 1, I had this guy, Andy, he's called, also Senior Mr. Minibagel, or whatever his username is. He called me a racist for 3 hours in the stream, and I let him because he was just doing it to me. And it wasn't like we really had that serious of a discussion anyway in that particular episode. But the thing is, when someone is, prohibiting a discussion in the group, you as a moderator has to do something. So you did the right thing.
I hate this because
I don't like arguments.
And let's get back on topic. What I just addressed, that the SJWs and the cultural Marxists, whatever you want to call them, the 5-year-old human children, are being used by the media to basically direct in a direction which is counterintuitive to their cause.
Well, I mean, for one thing, they were raised by the media, and for another thing, too, I mean, it's almost the definition of useful idiot, because, a good, genuinely progressive, genuinely liberal political movement, especially in this day and age, should be, there are far more pressing things than microaggressions and these, limp-wristed, pathetic sort of causes that they pick up. They pick them up because, for one thing, they're easy. Taking on things like big banks or the defense industry or the broken, criminal justice or political systems. Those are big, complicated, messy issues to attack, and it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of time. Focusing on these identity issues, it's just what a child does. I mean, a child doesn't really have, until a certain age, a child doesn't have a concept of a world outside of themselves, and these are grown human beings who never really became adults. And so naturally the media which raised them, it's going to be very keen to manipulate them in whatever ways that their interests are served by. And then you have entire swaths of academia which are dedicated really to just validating all of this shit as they continue forest cutting their way towards failed adulthood.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like really these people are essentially, they haven't moved past the puberty stage. They're essentially permanently teenagers with all the emotional and the identity. What's the word?
Identity issues.
Yeah, because you know how in puberty you're all messed up because you're still figuring out who you are and what you're about and what to do with your life. So
all of the hormones.
They can't do that.
Yeah, but the thing is, I've seen
in that state.
Yeah, but the thing is, I've seen more adult teenagers than they are. To me, they act like fucking kindergarteners.
Yeah, they do,
yeah.
and I mean.
The thing is, teenagers tend to act like children when they get all hormonal and freakish.
Yeah, but the thing is though, even I mean, like you don't have to go that far back. Actually, I mean, just take a look at our parents' generation. You know, when my mother was a teenager in the late 70s and the 80s, she tells me things that she used to do, and I mean, she was very much self-sufficient. She was ready to leave her home when she was 18 already. Like as soon as she was legally an adult, she could have moved from home and she would have been just fine. I mean, teenagers have always been moody and irrational and just hormonal and everything. But the difference is, if you teach them valuable life skills and you actually teach them that no, they're not the nougaty center of the fucking universe. They will actually be capable of acting like adults, even though they're not actually adults.
That was actually what I was going at when I started saying when I was a 13-year-old. That's the thing. When I was 13, my parents basically started leaving me alone for months on months, like going on vacations and shit, and they just left me some money and like, fend for yourself, do the shopping, cook, and whatever. The house is yours. And I didn't burn it down. I acted like a normal person.
Yeah, and I think.
The thing is that I fear that when I was 13, I probably would have burnt the house down. I probably would have gotten robbed 50 times.
Well, I remember I was out on my own at 16, but that was more circumstantial because, like, my family, we sort of lost everything, and then it just sort of made sense for me to move on.
Sorry.
Well, it just seems to be a thing, though. It's like, I think it also has to do with the generations, because if we remember too, there was the Gen Xers who they were largely the product of the baby boomers. They
remind me who they are.
Right now, like you're talking about a demographic of, I'd say, like maybe 38 up through I don't know, 45 maybe.
That's the Gen Xers.
Yeah, the Gen Xers. They were, they were the young people during, in the 90s.
Oh.
Like the film PC, that's a Generation X film.
Wow.
And for a good
long
while, yeah, and in the 90s, they were themselves that, there were huge swaths of what we call social justice warriors. Now they weren't as vocal because they didn't have the internet, so you couldn't see them all the time. But the political correctness was making its way into media. I remember even
Ebonics, for instance.
Yeah, well, that was just goofy shit on its own. But yeah, but then that was like they tried giving it a name and all that, and making it academic. But I recall even when it comes to like media and political correctness, I remember seeing this short-lived it was a Saturday morning kids sitcom pretty much about this family, and it had like a black dad, a Chinese mom, a white daughter, and then like a Latino son. And I remember even as a young boy looking at this thinking, like, I'm pretty sure that's not how that works. And it was, yeah, and it was really, it was the exact same sort of contrived fucking, forced narrative bullshit we're dealing with now. And what it seems to happen with the Gen Xers is that they, they went through that as a phase as it was, but because when they, grew up, got out of college, and the political correctness movement back then lasted about 6 years. And it really took the amount of time for them to grow up and get out of college and go into the world. Now, I'm kind of worried that may not happen with this generation because every step of the way, they're having their bad actions, their bad ideas, they're having it all validated. And that's already, we're starting to see them carry over.
They're sort of like in labs and things when they're testing. Sorry, am I getting? I can hear feedback.
Bit echoey.
Oh, that might be me. Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Yep. You were saying, Brit?
Yes. It reminds me of, sometimes in these lab experiments with mice, for instance, and they sort of try to, they put them in tubes, sort of thing, to guide their movements through to somewhere. They have to, guiding the mice on their way. These little tube things you can get for your pets and things like that. It's pretty much what I should say my generation because I'm 22. My generation has been like every step of the way. They've had someone putting an extra bit of tube, in front of them so they can go through, directly on that direct line where whoever's putting that tube there wants them to go down. From school, they've always been from day one. They've always had this nice four-wall environment where nothing bad happened to them, and someone's always there catering for them. Be from the house, and then there's the school, then there's the university. Not to say that going to university or college or anything like that is bad, and it shouldn't be in and of itself, but when you take all this whole thing of all this political correctness, all this stuff that's around them, that's influencing them in these spaces, then they become just prolonged indoctrination, and they essentially just keep people trapped in these spaces until it's time to leave the outside world, and then they're just like, holy shit, what do I do? And they just lose their.
But it's not every country though. From what I've been speaking to, for example, French friends of mine. I don't know if you guys know Fred Martin. He was on the Aura TV thing, and some other French people like They Gone Mad. When they talk about what feminism is in France and third wave feminism, which indirectly gets to the SJWs, with everything, all the luggage that it implies, and in Germany, which Kraut has mentioned before, you obviously know Sandre. They are basically they want meritocracies. They're meritocracies. They don't really stand. They're trying to introduce that bullshit, but it's not working in those countries. Neither is it in Portugal. I know Spain. It's well entrenched. Lately, they've been pushing for Islamic studies and the Quran to be taught in school, in primary school in Spain.
Well, I think it also. I mean, I think a part of that also has to do with how a society is structured. I mean, in Germany, for instance, when you're going through school, for instance, options are laid out before you, and you do get guidance. But you're basically encouraged to find something specific, and people try and help you do that. Here in the States, for instance, it's really a sort of, go find yourself, follow your passions, all this kind of shit. And there's merit to that. There's a certain virtue to it. But at the same time, when everyone is being raised with the notions that they should go out and change the world and make the world a better place, and then all of a sudden they need to find a way to do that. When they're confronted with something that is that basically validates their narcissism, of course they're going to gravitate towards that, especially if they have people pushing them towards it. These liberal arts sociology majors, for the most part, when they leave school, there's going to be nothing for them to do. I mean, what are they going to do? I mean, the world can only have so many professional feminists. The world can only have so many professional activists. And when it comes to activism, like professional work, it requires both certain talent and training. You can't just go out all gung-ho believing in a cause. You need to actually know how to hold certain conversations in certain ways. You need to know how to basically weigh and balance what sort of costs and effort are going to be required for a given result, all those sorts of things, and these are skills that they're simply not building.
No, and the thing is also, in order to bring this back a bit to the topic of disregard of democracy, I think another part of this whole disregard of democracy, when it comes to this generation, I think it also has to do with a lack of general knowledge. There is a very important factor when it comes to certain countries. If you take Germany, for instance, not only are they meritocratic, but they also believe in teaching people a little about everything. It's not like you just go through school and you just learn this and this and this very specific thing like it is in the United States, for instance. No, you actually learn a little bit about everything in primary school, for instance. You learn a more nuanced look. I mean, you get a more nuanced look at history, for instance. You get a more nuanced look at studies about society, for instance. And that means that you have a broader perspective of how a society actually functions, and it makes you more critical as a person. In the U.S., as far as I've seen, when it comes to the actual layout of education, they don't seem to have a very broad education at all. It seems to be quite the opposite. It's very specific. I mean, even when it comes to actual math tests, you have like this bullshit of you have like 4 options on the fucking SATs, I think. And I mean, you don't actually need to understand what you've been learning during the course. You just have to know it well enough in order to pass a fucking test.
Yeah.
And what that means is that
regurgitate.
Yeah, and what that means is that as the education material is very cherry-picked, you see that it's very much about the hows of a society, but it's very little about the whys. Like, for instance, okay, this is how the U.S. government functions, but they don't tell you why it functions the way it does. Okay, this is how slavery was, but they don't tell you why slavery was.
Well, there is something of a shift. At least I'm seeing in my area, like here in New Hampshire. There's actually a move. They're actually moving to make a greater emphasis on civics in primary through high school education. Yeah, and it's it's anybody. I mean, my state is an exceptionally political state. We have the largest legislature per population in the world. We're host to the opening primary of every election. Basically, like campaign season here. I mean, most places campaign season is every 2 to 4 years. Here, you get about 2 days off, and then it's campaign season again. And as a result of such, a lot of people for a long time have been saying, why don't we teach civics? People don't even have an idea of how government functions, let alone why it's set up the way it is. And some people don't understand the difference between the judiciary and the legislative and the executive branches. And those are just very, very basic things. They also, I mean, like you ask the average person these days, at least here in the States, what their thoughts on the concept of bureaucracy is, and they think it's just some manifestation of corruption, when it is in fact actually like a mechanism that is built into government to keep it from going too crazy and too wild. And people don't understand this.
Post World War II, that wasn't the case. The majority of Americans, especially even up until the 60s, they knew exactly and they knew how their government functioned. The three branches, all aspects of the American political system, they knew it. There has been an erosion of that knowledge because the universities and the education system hasn't been working so well. Do you think so? Don't you think so?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, between the issues of teaching to the test, which is what a lot of, I mean, I know, and I've dated actually a lot of teachers, and it's always been, the biggest thing is it's teaching to the test. Another big problem was, especially with the tech boom in the 90s, emphasis kind of moved away from more traditional lesson plans, such as basic, in addition to basic academic courses, things such as civics, social studies, history, those sorts of things, and they moved more towards tech orientations because everyone's like, well, that's the future, that's what we need. And so there were people out. Yeah, there were people out there who were actively saying things such as like, because I mean there is a virtue to liberal arts education. It's just modern liberal arts as we see it now. It's the same thing with sociology. My grandfather was a social work and sociology professor at the University of Connecticut. Only man, I think, in the history of the field to be given his PhD without officially publishing and going through the motions, and they based basically on his lifetime of work as a social worker in Brooklyn. Now, I inherited his unfinished journals decades after he died. When my grandmother died, I got these crates full of these binders of unfinished journals of his. And he was studying at the time. He had a very strong focus on ideology and the way groups interact with other groups and the way ideologies form and what their function was. And it was a very scientific approach to it. It wasn't about trying to advance a cause as much as understand the thing. The creepy thing there, too, is I noticed that many of his ideas, as well as his writing style, were very much like my own, except just polished and more refined. But this was to look at what was going on in the 70s or even the 80s in the schools of social work and sociology, and to compare it to now, it's night and day. It's gone from being a scientific, soft science, but a scientific endeavor, to being one that's so meshed with mass communications and propaganda that it's really just about justifying and validating ideas and then teaching young people, indoctrinating them into it, and teaching them how to go out and advance those causes.
I mean, not even peer review functions anymore. I mean, these people, they essentially let their close friends in the field review their papers, and then they say, oh, it's peer-reviewed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what actually makes me laugh the most about this peer review you have there.
Yeah, go ahead, Lib.
Sorry, I'd agree with that because, I didn't study it for that very long, but in my A level, I took sociology. And just the way my teacher behaved and the way she basically sussed us out, or seemed to. She pretty much she was basically a lefty, you know, to the core, and plugged that continuously. And what we learned, it seemed like, you know, the inequalities and all that stuff about sort of the underclass and how there's the systems of oppression, all that sort of shit, and you know, about you know, there's the Marxist perspective, there's the feminist perspective, then there's the liberal perspective, and it wasn't so much as to actually understand any much of what we actually, I goddamn have a hard time thinking about what it was we actually goddamn looked at.
You know, but, I wonder, just to make a point here, I wonder if you showed her a book by Adam Smith, I wonder if she would go like...
This is, you know, that's the funny thing though too. I mean, Adam Smith is seen as the devil, and you know what? I don't think anyone in the field even knows who John Nash is anymore.
I have an inkling of knowledge of him. Very limited. Very limited.
Well, I mean, at its core, you know, well, Smith sort of, you know, Smith took that classic position of, you know, everyone working for their own best interests. Basically, nets the best result because everyone is working as hard as they can.
Yep.
Nash came at it from a different perspective. Basically, that said that if the individual's interest is incorporated into the group interest and weighed against the probability of a successful outcome, then the best result is achieved. So basically, you know, if one is within a group, naturally they want to go for what their interests dictate, but they need to weigh their interests against the competitive nature within their group, because if too much competition within a given group can basically spoil results for everyone. Because if everyone's going for the one thing, everyone's a loser.
Didn't he have like this example of guys who are looking to get laid, and there's one blonde, and all of them are into blondes?
Yeah, that was in the film The Beautiful Mind, which was actually what introduced me to him in the first place. And that was, I thought that was a brilliant expression of Nash's overall sort of theory of governing dynamics. You know, Nash was working on, you know, he was kind of working on the model of Adam Smith, and he didn't completely discredit him, but he said that there was more to it than simply the motivating factors of self-interest. But even with that, it's hilarious too, because these people who are, you know, ardent communists, I can't think of the last time I heard anybody from the sociology world mention either John Nash or Adam Smith.
No, I never heard of him. No. But going back quickly to my teacher, she had an agenda. She had a bias that was just screaming from the rooftops, and she eventually got it into her head that I looked down on my classmates because I quote this. She said to me that I am an upper middle class snob, purely because when she asked me to guess what my my classmates' grades were, what their sort of target grades were, what I thought they were the grades they were getting in the class. My answers were not entirely favourable to most of them, mostly because I knew just from their behaviour and just the way two of them fell asleep, and the rest just very obviously didn't give a shit about the class or learning or anything. And
Could I just interject real quick? I was just going to say I've actually got a bow out, so it was good talking with all of you. And if you're still going,
Nicholas, it's always an honor having you on, man. Thank you for being on, man.
Well, it's my pleasure, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, and if you guys are still going, I'll if when I get back, I'll jump back in.
No worries. Cheers, mate.
Okay.
Cool.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Aww.
But
I love that guy.
Yes, sir. Oh God, I love his voice.
But
having a fanboy moment.
Yeah, I'm having an orgasm just listening.
Yeah, sorry, Lit. Go on.
Yeah.
Yes, go on.
But yeah, she gauged that I obviously looked down on all of my classmates, and I had a superiority complex.
Oh boy.
And what? And then one time when I gave my opinion on something that we were discussing, and she said, "Do you deliberately come here to be Thatcherist?" I'm like, no, that's just my honest opinion. Well, sorry, you're a lefty. But and another time when she was very intent on basically saying that any household that doesn't have sort of 50-50 work is oppressive in some way. That she says, oh, but your dad doesn't help with everything, does he? Your mum still does all the work, most of the work. I'm like, yeah, because she's there most of the time. My dad's at work, working to do shit, to give us shit. My mum also works from home, so and it was just the whole thing was just plugging an agenda of some kind, and not actually getting you to critically think or to understand shit, and to actually do what Nicholas's grandfather was doing.
Yeah, but that's another thing. It's good that you shared this story actually, because that brings me to another point, and it's that people today, my generation, I'm 24, and what I've noticed about my generation is that not only are they afraid of conflict, but they don't want to make their own. Well, maybe it's not even that they don't want to. They just can't. They can't make their own decisions about anything.
No.
It's like if you give them a choice, they will just go all floppy. They don't know how to rationally take input and come up with a rational output. They don't know how to process data to make the best decision for themselves. And this is very symptomatic, because this kind of rhetoric about how it's oppressive if the man and the woman doesn't share the housework 50-50. Okay, first of all, you don't even take into account if maybe one of them works full time and the other one only works part time, or maybe doesn't work at all. Then it's only natural that is the case that the woman, for instance, if she works part time or doesn't work at all, she does the housework. It's actually fair that way. It's not fair to expect the man, if he works full time. You know the point. Anyway, but then there's the other point, and it's this nonchalantness, this idea that two grown-ass people can't make their own fucking decisions about their own fucking relationship, that you need some kind of authoritative approval, some kind of mold from above to shape your fucking relationship. No, you don't. And that's what this generation needs to understand. You don't need approval from authority. You don't need to live according to a fucking mold that is predetermined for you. You decide with your partner how you are going to live, and it goes for anything. You decide how you want your life to be. But that goes both ways. You can't just claim that, oh, you are entitled to all of these fucking services and opportunities and blah 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 blah, but then you also have to take the fucking responsibility. And then it goes back to what you were talking about, Red, about how these people, they not only are they incapable of taking care of themselves and don't want to, they just don't want to be responsible,
Yeah, it's scary to them, because that involves making your own decisions and actually researching them.
Yeah.
This brings me up to a new point on how they have apparently evolved. We have now the Antifa movement, which are basically the SJWs fighting against anyone who disagrees with them, basically.
Yeah, God knows it's not Nazis, because the Nazis aren't there just
violent.
aren't enough Nazis for them to fight, so they've started to pick on any kind of right-leaning group.
Exactly, yeah. Everyone, I think everyone's seen that 37 to 400, the 37 or less than, it was less than 50 right-wing, whatever they are, right-wing, white supremacist guys that had a legal meeting, and they were crashed by 400 of Antifa. And what really made me impressive, the impression that I got, one of the Antifas, this guy had been already beaten, the neo-Nazi had already been beaten the shit out of him. He was getting up, and this superhero Antifa had a flag with looked like a 2x4, just whacked him one, bang, the guy dropped, and he was dragged off. So who was it that made a video? I saw it yesterday. That wasn't it you, Sandre? Didn't you do the video where you described them that was basically a kids fight? No, it wasn't you. But I think that it wasn't a real fight as it used to be, where real violence, real blood would spurt and people would die. It appeared to me more like a Muppet fight. So they are sort of evolving a little bit. The left.
Well, at this point, the only time you're gonna see a real fight, you have to look for football hooligans.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, they're the last ones that know how to actually properly beat the shit out of each other.
I can imagine a group of football hooligans from any country. I mean, any country, even from Portugal. We have them here, going up, saying we are whatever, and they are confronted with a group of these little snowflakes, because they are snowflakes.
Yeah.
It would be even 40 of football hooligans to 400 of them. It would still be an uneven fight on the hooligan side.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually imagining them going against Russian football hooligans.
Yeah.
Well, the Russians will fuck them up.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
you don't fuck with Russians. I've learned that much. All those years of drinking vodka, they have no fucking nerve endings. They don't feel pain. They're dangerous as fuck.
I think we've set up how the useful idiots in the disrespecting and the eroding of the democracy, as we've established them. We have the SJWs, we have Black Lives Matters, and the little kids that are basically 5-year-old brains in the bodies of 30-year-olds. We can see the consequences now. We can sort of talk about the consequences of this eroding. I'll just a short monologue of my part, then you guys can have it all free. What I see is the corporations that in America are actually people, and I've tried to think of an idea of how to counteract that in court. How can I prove that they are not people? And it's quite difficult. One day I'll do a stream on that, but not now. We're just saying it's basically the corporations, the big banks, governments, they all fear the populace, the plebs, us, the normal people, the poor cunts that we are. Well, I am anyway. So they don't want popular vote. They don't want what happened in Britain, but they do want what could happen in Hungary in October. Hungary just announced that they are going to do a referendum on the quotas that have been undemocratically put on every member of the European Union, that they must receive a quota of refugees, not refugees, of migrants.
Yeah.
As we all know, they're a small percentage of refugees. And Hungary is going to vote. Judging from the mood that's in Hungary, I think anything below a 70% rejection of more migrant quotas, to me, will be a loss for the Hungarian plebiscite. And I'm just making a conservative guess here.
Don't
you guys
worry.
think?
Don't worry. Hungarians are really not fond of Muslims. They're not gonna let them in. It's going to be a landslide.
No, I agree, but I'm just saying, will the European Union respect that?
Well, I mean, of course we're not gonna do that. Actually, I might as well do this because I have it here. Let's see now. I have this this chart, you see, that shows the very undemocratic history of the European Union. If I could only get, there it is. You see, if we take, for instance, in 1992, Denmark said no to the Maastricht Treaty, and you know, the EU made them vote again until they got the correct answer.
Yeah.
And in 2001, Ireland voted 53.9% no to the Nice Treaty, and they were made to vote again. And in 2005, in France, 54.7% said no to the EU Constitution. They were ignored. Again in 2005, the Netherlands 61.5% voted no to the EU Constitution. They were ignored. In Ireland in 2008, 53.2% said no to the Lisbon Treaty. They were made to vote again. In Greece in 2015, 61.3% said no to the Euro bailout. They were ignored. In 2016, this year, the Netherlands said 61.6% said no to the Ukraine-EU agreement, and they were ignored. It's pretty clear that the EU, not only does it itself operate in an undemocratic manner,
and
it doesn't give a flying fuck.
And people are surprised that I called the EU the EU SSR.
No, but they are. I mean, like, it's so fucking obvious. Just look at their history. They are anti-democracy. They don't give a fuck.
Yes, they don't. They just want power.
Yeah, and I mean, also another thing that is fucking scary now, and I'm gonna get into this before I have to go. But first thing, it's fucking scary that Juncker has now said that he wants to force the remaining EU countries to get the euro. Which is scary as hell, because we all know what a fucking success story the euro is, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's so wonderful. Just look at Greece. Yeah.
And Portugal.
Yeah, the euro is shit, and it doesn't work because you have a bunch of countries with different governments with different fiscal policies that have the same currency. It's gonna be a fucking it's not gonna work. And then what I wanted to say as well, another reason as to why you have this disregard for democracy, you actually have it from three directions. One, you have it from the actual population, at least a small portion of them, the SJWs, for instance. But not just them. You also have the alternative right, who are very largely anti-democratic as well. But then you also have it from two other directions. You have it from the actual governments, such as the EU, who have shown themselves to be anti-democratic. But also you have ordinary politicians in other governments within nations that also push for authoritarian legislation. And then you have this anti-democratic sentiment from a third direction, and that is actually the private sector. Because now it gets interesting, because you have these for instance, these internet corporations, like I mean, take Facebook for instance. It's in their interest that they can censor people, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to push for legislation to actually censor people, for instance, because that benefits them. It's good for their image. You see, Facebook, and I understand them in a way, they don't like it when people write nigger, for instance. It might give the wrong impression of Facebook. But if they are going to be an open, board, they have to do that. But they don't want to do that. So you have this anti-democratic sentiment from three directions. Now, the government, a portion of the actual people, such as the SJWs and the alternative right, who are the most vocal about this at the moment. And then you also have the actual corporations, the social media, for instance, who doesn't like freedom of speech, for instance, because
this is why I love Russian social media. No one gives a shit what you write there.
Back.
How's here? Oh, sorry, Christine, go on.
Continue. I just felt a inside need to say that.
I'm not sure what I was going to say before. There were two things I wanted to say. The main thing was just going back to the well, the second thing, I need a video for that, but I'm going to look for it now. But the first thing was just going back to the what we were talking about earlier about the result of my generation's conditioning, shall we say, the being brought up the way we have. And I think I'm pretty much one of the results of that in a way. Maybe not in my ideas now, but I didn't really have much ideas back then, so it was more in my behaviour, in my reaction to difficulties, shall we say.
Yeah, but you know what? Now you got me actually of thought with your line of thinking. The whole immaturity manifested itself to the point that they can't even speak for themselves anymore. That's why they want the censorship. Everything offends them, everything triggers them, everything sends them into a frenzy. They don't know how to respond to it. Back in the day, if, I don't know, a kid came to their parents and said, this person called me this and that, the parent would tell them, well, don't you know any fucking curse words yourself?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Or just tell the kid that, you know what, the fact that the person said that to you says more about that person than it does about you.
Oh, but that's the moral high road. That's not fun.
No.
Yeah. My dad, when he was a kid, if he got whacked by the teacher and he came to his mum and said, well, the teacher whacked me today, she'd look at him and just say, well, you probably deserved it then.
Yeah,
I don't like. In all honesty, I don't like that approach either. I prefer the parents that were like mine. They weren't like, "What did she do? What did you do?" No, my mother just asked what happened and got both sides of the story. I despise this type of position. Also, that sets yourself that I'm sure it was only your fault. You did something wrong. I mean, there are shitty teachers and there are shitty kids too. I remember when I actually got punished in school for hitting a kid, but the thing is, she hit me first, but the teacher didn't saw that, and she only saw me hitting her back, and I got fucked up.
Tell me about it. Me too.
Yeah.
But I was going to say that really I'm not quite sure now whether or not it was the result of my generation's upbringing, or a combination of just my circumstances, or both. Because so the thing is, when I was a kid, when I was born, I was very premature, and it affected my hearing and my eyesight, and just my general motor and social skills in general. So I was much younger than my peers, generally speaking, in terms of my interaction skills and things like that. Which is why I would my safe space was pretty much the reading corner in my classroom, and I would stay there most of the time unless someone else dragged me to go and play. And the thing is that my parents very much wanted to make things better for me, so they got me enrolled in all these different sports and God knows what, you name it, I did it. But they also wanted me to have all sorts of the support I needed, and judging my hearing issues and my sight issues, well, that is understandable, I suppose. But so I got the hearing boxes, the hearing aids, all that sort of stuff. When they actually picked up on the fact that I wasn't hearing properly, which was when I was about 2. And the thing is, when I got to school, my teachers and my classmates were made very aware of my how do I say it, difficulties. And so in that respect, they catered to my every need, my every whim. Even if it wasn't even a problem or a whim of mine, they would, if I left a coat in the classroom, oh, don't worry about it, Christina, I'll go and get it for you. Everything was that someone was always there, and I thought they're going to do it for me. The older years, the older classmates, all that sort of stuff. And after a while, you think that way. You begin to think, oh, I can't do this by myself. I need someone to help me. And suddenly when you're given responsibility over whatever it is, then you suddenly feel helpless, and you suddenly think to yourself, oh Christ, what do I do? What if I mess up? Oh Christ, what do I do? And that's what happened a lot of the time. So I ended up relying a lot on other people, and essentially it's kind of I suppose you would call it a learned helplessness.
Yeah, but I do have to say though, because you shared this story with me before, yeah. And I do have to say though that might have been you, but considering now, I would say that you've done a very good recovery from being a big baby. I would say that you're actually I would say that you're actually a confident adult.
Some areas, yes, others not.
No, come on now.
I guess yeah.
I mean, no. I mean, look. You're my GF. Do you honestly think I would be interested in a big baby?
I don't know. Some guys actually like to take care of helpless
please
girls.
Don't remind me. Oh God, it's so disgusting.
Christina, just one small clarification. Your classmates helped you. Did I hear that right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's opposite of what happened to me, but not because of any physical thing. I've already told everyone, you guys as well, I was the only Portuguese kid in all my in my schools. And at primary school, everyone, no problems there. I was a wog with the Greeks and the Italians and the Yugoslavs and so on. So we were all in the same boat. But in high school, there was a slight division with the Greeks on one side, the Italians neutral, and the Australians just didn't give a shit about anyone else. And there was me. And what happened was that first day at school, a couple of year 11 Greeks decided to pick on me. I beat one up. I beat the biggest one up. I broke his nose. I broke his nose. Yeah. I had to break his nose. I established that I would not be intimidated because I was shit scared, and my reaction out of total fear, I just grabbed his head and just kept punching his nose. I broke it. The other guys that were around him, there were about 3 or 4. I can't actually remember. It was so long ago. But at least 3. 2 of them hit me, but only tentatively. I didn't have any bruises in that. And the guy that I broke his nose, he never came near me. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but from then till year 11, I was on and off in fights with the Greeks at least once a week. But I actually loved those guys. It was real fights, but with bloody noses, broken noses and shit. But I actually loved those guys because when we played inter-school competitions, they would be the first to be behind me if anyone would touch me. Do you see what I mean? We forgot our rivalries, but shit, he's ours. You're not touching ours. And that's how I grew up. The only time my mother, where Red picked up on, well, this is something about Red, where she said her mother, I never came home with any bruises or anything, but I was always in a fight. I would always try to protect myself on that. Was once when I came home with a black eye. I couldn't hide it. My mum said to me, "What the fuck did you do?" And she just gave me a slap. And I said, "But I was picked on by 3 cunts and that. I don't care. You don't fight at school and that's it." I said, "Okay, Mum, no worries."
Oh,
but she did hit me. Yeah. I was abandoned by my parents. When I was at primary school, my mum would take me to a family. They were Greek. I love them. They were my brother, but they had a kid my age. He was my classmate. He was my brother. I'm a only child. And from 5 o'clock in the morning, she would drop me off and pick me up at 6 when she came home from work. Then she got when I was sixth grade, just as I was going to high school, she got a job at where she would leave me at home. I'd get up, 5th and 6th grade. I'd get up and walk to school, which was close by, so there was no problem. Then she got work at home, and then she suddenly nurtured me. My dad, he was go to work at 5 and come home at 6, and he'd eat and he'd go to bed because he was always tired, and it was normal. I understood him. He is my best friend, my father, by the way. He only beat me once, and I wish he could beat me more for another many more years, but he's old, so yeah. See what I mean? I was brought up to rely on myself, to not expect anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. Because I mean, just like I said, I was left on months when I was 13. At the age of 16, I was actually left completely alone because my parents moved out of the city to the deeper countryside because they felt like it. And I was left in the apartment. They left me the apartment and like, whatever, this is yours now, do what yourself. And I went to high school and did stuff, and I lived alone basically since I was 16, and no one gave a shit.
You know, it's kind of sad, really, how this generation will probably never know what it feels like to actually achieve something.
Oh yeah.
There's something which just blows my mind out. I know, especially in America, I don't know how the English system works, but I think the same. Kids go to university away from home. They rent apartments and shit. They have to rely on themselves. My son does the same, and my daughter did the same. Even though the university where they go to is 120 kilometers from home. Theoretically, they could do that, go and come back, but no, because of the study and all that shit. I would go home every day from university. It was only about 20 kilometers from home, from my house. And I can't imagine my kids. I see that they have grown up. They are self-reliant. They are confident. They know how to cook. They will never starve, because the student's meal, I think, everywhere is either rice or spaghetti with tuna. It is here in Portugal. So, but no, my kids, I taught them. They go to the supermarket. They buy meat, vegetables, spices, and make real food.
Tell
they
me
make stews.
Tell me about it. You know what? Funny thing, and this is something I actually used eventually to piss off my mother when she pissed me off too much. I can cook better than she does. She never wants to admit it, but one time she was arguing with me, and I actually said to her, you know, even Grandpa says I cook better than you, so suck it up.
I think I'm also the best cook in my household, but I can't experiment because my wife and my father are very, very, very traditionalists. I cannot add anything that's basically the only thing I can add is laurel leaves, or shit, what's it? Another herb, I can't remember it. Laurel, or not hardy, by the way. Shit.
Allspice?
No, it's
Allspice body wash. I'm sorry.
I have allspice, but no, it's in Portuguese is alecrim. I can't remember the fucking name in Portuguese. In English, god damn it.
You can
Anyway, there's just very, very limited amount of ingredients which I can put, and but I always sneak it in, and they don't know. They love it because I sneak it in. I'm an experimental cook.
Yeah, that's the thing.
My mum might be the best cooking. And my mum might be the best cook in the house, but I'm the best baker in the house.
My mother
I can bake something without my mum burns everything.
Yeah, my mother is a very good cook, but the thing is, I just use also a lot more spices and a lot more things, and that's the thing. I think that's what my grandpa likes, because he likes actually funky shit.
I have here in Portugal we have rice with duck. It also has it's quite famous. It's quite good. That I learned my own way to do it. We first boiled the duck put in a couple of one onion into the water and salt. It boils until it's soft. We take out all the meat, and then we prepare rice with it. My version compared to everyone else's version is just totally delicious because I add stuff to it and they don't notice it. I add spices, I add wine, I add all sorts of herbs in that, and then it's just Worcestershire sauce. I love that sauce. It goes in everything I cook into it. Worcester sauce.
Carlos, maybe you should go on Portuguese Master Chef.
No, never. I'm just for my house. That's me. Yeah.
But going back to what we were saying there, what I was saying there.
Yes.
Where was I? I was on a roll. What was that? Oh yeah. So by the time I got to secondary school, I was a big baby. Sixth formers looked after me in the first few weeks until they left. And I clung to the old friends I had at school, but as it usually happens, we broke away. The others went to other friends, and I was in danger of being left alone, essentially. So it just happened that one of my friends actually pointed that out once, that she happened to get in contact with a few other people, and in that way I was in contact with them too, and so we became friends in that respect, purely by my association with one of my old friends from primary school. And it just carried on that way. And really, I should have broken off and found my own friends, because they really, I had no particular, what's the word, affinity with them at all. And they obviously had no affinity with me either. And several of their number took advantage of me in many respects, emotionally and psychologically fucked with me over the period of a few years, and essentially just used me because I was an easy target. Nobody respects a weakling, and I was no exception. And that includes one of my old friends who I actually am going to arrange to meet before I head off for a year. Just as a, to be the better person. Because that was never resolved, any of that, and she never apologized, so I assume she forgot. But the thing is, I had no guts. My mother kept trying to get me to say something to her, and she wanted me to give her, to tell her to do something. But I didn't want her to do anything about it, and yet I was not adult or mature enough, or just brave enough to even to do it myself. So I was just essentially stuck in limbo for several years.
In other words, you used to be a millennial, but you're not anymore.
Well, I'm still a millennial in a few respects. I still can't properly make a lot of decisions without having to ask someone first. Namely, my parents.
It's only natural, but I mean, it's like I don't know. I think you need to cut yourself some slack, honestly, because you're way more independent than you think. By the way, I have to go, Carlos. It's been fun.
Oh man.
Lit, tell me when you're done, okay?
Okay. We'll do.
It's Sandre. It's always an honor. Thank you, man. Thank you.
See you, Sandre. Bye.
Bye bye.
Yeah.
See you then.
See, the thing,
but
I just want.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Like, you go.
No, I just want to say that I think you just need to believe in yourself more than you do. Because you strike me as that type of person that needs that kick of confidence. I mean, look at yourself. You overcame a lot of obstacles. You had a rough start. You went beyond that. You're intelligent. You're educated. You're a pretty girl. Stand before a mirror and basically say to yourself, you're a winner. You're tough. You overcame that. I mean, you kick ass. Love yourself. Believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Can I tell you the story of my son?
Okay.
He's the youngest of he's 21 years old. He's studying computer engineering at the same school.
My brother is also doing that. Well, computer science.
When he was at high school, he was totally, slightly dependent on his mum. In fact, because I didn't want to have conflict at house at home, I didn't like the way his homework was being done. I tried to do my bit, and I did my bit, but no, I'm not recriminating my wife on that. I just saw that he was being slightly pampered too much, and I saw that he has had problems with humanity type subjects like language, Portuguese, and so on.
Mm.
But he was super good at math. Right?
Yeah.
So when he went to university, I was mortified. I thought, shit. Luckily, he went to live with his sister. She had rented a single room apartment, and she was there. She was on her third year, so she was almost finished.
Mm.
He came on in his first year, and he was having super trouble adopting. He would cry. He would ring me up. I'm angry and shit. And I said, please calm down. When we'd come home the weekend, I'd do my best to explain. Calm down, I'll do anything you want. Everything. I did everything I could to get him over that stage.
Mm.
That happened in the first 3 months. Afterwards, he started to relate to his classmates and that, and I noticed a slight change. He was slightly more comfortable. He was still a bit tense, but he was getting better. On the third semester, I saw that shit. Now he's okay. That was when my daughter was about to finish her. She was preparing to finish her course, and that's when my heart stopped beating. Shit, can he cope by himself? But he surprised me. He knew that they were going to leave that single bedroom apartment, and he said, okay, when Melissa goes, I think we've already gotten an apartment for me and 4 other mates from our course. I said to myself, oh, well, good on you. And my heart started, whoa, awesome. I think he's getting there. He managed this year. He's with 3 other guys. He negotiated the internet connection, which is fiber optics and shit. His other mates, all of them negotiated a renting apartment, but they're going to move to another one because they reckon it's too high. So he moved in about 3 months. He went from totally introverted like I am to someone who I can see knows how to take care of himself. So you just need positive reinforcement. You just need confidence, because I see,
My younger brother, he's 19. He's currently in his first year of uni. And he's had quite a comfortable time of it, in respect that my mum makes his dinners for him, and he takes them there. And he can come home whenever he likes, because we're about 15, 20 minutes away from the university, and yet he lives in halls. He's going to live in a house with a few other friends next year. So if it weren't for the fact that he's actually, having a social life, and he actually sort of opens up with friends and things, then we would get very worried about him, because when he's at home, he says pretty much nothing to all of us, except when football's on or something, or if you ask him a question, good luck getting an answer more than 3 sentences, or more than 3 words.
Is he introverted?
Seriously introverted. He never used to be that way. He used to be extremely extroverted, really extroverted. But then suddenly, I don't know, on puberty, he just suddenly, all that went away.
Exactly. I passed through that, and I still am super, super introverted. You guys can't imagine how much I've actually evolved since I started basically Twitter since January up until then. I was, and this is helping me. This is my therapy. I'm thinking more. I stopped thinking for about 2 years. Now I'm thinking again. I'm recalling, and this is a therapy, and it's good that your brother stays there. I also do cook dinner for me and my wife. We also cook dinner for my son and for my daughter when they were together, where they to take just for economic sense. If we have it here, we cook them a steak or something. They take it. They have a fridge there, so they put it in the freezer and they cook it whenever they want. He just heats it up or whatever. It's economic sense. It's not that he needs to. He knows how to cook. And but the fact that your brother is staying with his, the hall, whatever, that's good for him because he will have to deal with people, and that's good. Except there's one thing that sort of bothers me. If he was here in Portugal, he would have no SJW aggressive influence at all. He would have to be totally reliant on that. That's the only thing that I see the difference between the UK and Portugal.
Yeah. The thing is, he never gives any opinion on anything. He hates to be put on the spot, it seems. So I never hear about what he thinks about any of that sort of stuff, or whatever goes on. He never says anything. He is pretty much mute for most of the day unless you ask him something.
That's how I was.
In which case he stays in his room. And
I
wonder if he could actually make. Dinner for himself if Mum didn't make it for him. I know he probably could make something simple or something like that, but I know I doubt it.
Spaghetti and tuna.
Probably. Something like that. But yeah, hopefully he comes out of his shell at some point.
Oh, he will.
Yeah. The way I listen to this, I think I'm just a weird case, basically, because I would say I'm introverted, but at the same time, you don't need to ask for my opinion. I'm just gonna cut in and give it. When I'm among people, I'm one of those types that like to be in the fucking spotlight.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I always try to invite you. I love the way your personality is just so. I love it. I can't. There's nothing. I just love it. It's
just all over the place.
Because I like I said, I'm very introverted and I am getting at 50 years old. I'm getting out of my shell. For fuck's sake. It's almost, oh God, it's almost weird. An old cunt just now getting out of his shell. But I reckon, it's never early. It's never too late. It's
exactly.
Yeah. But what was I going to say? I know right now I'm kind of a bit in a weird place because recently a friend of mine and I'm trying to organise for 2 friends of mine to come down and see me down south here where I am, just to see me before I go off to Germany for a year. And one of them lives in a household where basically her parents' word is law, and she can't defy them. She won't defy them.
Oh dear.
Yeah, they're one of these insane sort of don't be back by before 9 and you can't have a man until you finish your studies, and you've got all these things to do.
You know what? When I hear about such parents, I think the best therapy and punishment at the same time would be giving me to them for a week as a kid.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I'm presuming because that's the reason why she said, "Oh no, I can't," even though it would take what? All you need just one train journey to come and see me. It would take about an hour. to come see me. She suggested, oh, let's go meet halfway in London. I'm like, that's not bloody halfway for me. And I'm just presuming that Daddy said, oh no, you can't. It's beyond London. Don't go there.
Yeah, you know what?
For God's sake, I'm going away for a year, and she's the one that goes on about how much of a best friend I am.
If someone
and then I don't want to be with the other friend, because the other friend is the one that fucked me over, and I'm still working out what I feel about that, because I'm still sort of like, do I hate her or do I hate me? Probably me more than anything.
You know what?
Christina,
I would actually do if someone actually tried that with me, and this is actually why trying to ground me would be impossible, because my mother tried it once. And I said to her, so yeah, you said I can't go out, and I'm saying, how are you going to physically stop me? You can't stop me, because I'm a teenager and I'm pretty much taller than you at this point. And what are you going to do when I come back? Are you going to shut me out? Are you going to change the locks? No, you're not going to do that. So fuck you and you're grounding. I'm going out and I'm coming back when I want.
Christina, you don't have to hate that friend. No, and it's not you.
No, I don't think I do.
It's not you. It's her. Do you know what you do? Just ignore her.
Oh yeah.
You don't have to hate. Just ignore her. Yeah, exactly. Because you're not at fault at all. No, it's not you. It's her. You don't have to hate her. Just make her irrelevant. That's the best thing to do. I've never hated her.
To the point where things have become to the point where she's almost an entirely different person. It's like that never happened. One second. No.
Well, yeah, I know that. I've had that experience a long time. Yes, for a lot of.
And so I've gone out with her for various occasions over the years since then. And so blowing up now would seem like closing the door after the horse has bolted. And really, what I'm really angry about really is the fact that I allowed it in the first place.
No, she'll then claim victim. Yeah, she'll just claim victimhood. You just push her out without even noticing. Like, there are ways. You're going to Germany. When you come back, you just don't call her or don't interact with her. And if she comes to you, say, "Oh, hello, I have to go. Bye." Stuff like that. There are many, many tactics which you can ignore her. You don't have to hate her. Just make her irrelevant. She will get after enough. Oh, I have to go. Those soft brush-offs.
Yeah, you can let the connection naturally decay till it's gone.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah.
I mean, it has pretty much decayed a lot anyway. I never, unless it was a party of someone else, or anything like that, then I will go.
Never hate anyone.
Damn nice. And it's just entirely different person. It's just annoying because I wish I had an excuse to blow up at her, but I don't.
Don't.
And so it's just all that built up anger.
You feel if you naturally let it go, that anger will dissipate even faster. Trust me, I've been through that. Now, anyone who slights me, I don't hate them. I don't hate anyone. Well, yeah, I do hate Muslim terrorists and the people who are really, really evil. They are naturally, but people that slight me, I have neighbors who are the fucking biggest cunts in the world. I don't hate them. They've done shit to me. They've even flooded my garage. I don't hate them. Yeah, I don't hate them because I'll get revenge. They will die. So fuck them. I don't hate them, but I totally, if I see them looking at me, I'll just divert my gaze and continue on. I don't see them. I feel better, and I don't have that.
I guess that works for some. With me, it wouldn't work because I have one of those personalities that if someone takes a swing at me, I'm gonna take a swing back, and then it's gonna fucking hurt you.
oh, if anyone swings at me, they don't get up. That's another story. Yeah, that's different.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm not like that. I wish I was like that. I wish I was like that.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Unfortunately, I'm not like that. And that's coming to bite me back in the ass.
You don't have to. You don't have to fight. Do you know that after year 11, I have never had a fight since then. This was 1984. Since 1994, I have not hit anyone. So I don't need to. I now use my intellect.
Yes, that's also a good way. It can be actually as effective as stabbing someone under the ribs as doing it literally.
And it's more fun, especially in the internet, because you just laugh your head off. Today I had a fight with a couple of Muslim little ladies from America, and I was having fun. And then this troll account, sometimes I'm so innocent. I only got him at the fourth tweet that he posted that he was a troll account. And you know how I shut him up? I went to a site which is called the Skeptic's Guide to the Bible. The Skeptics and Noted Bible. And I posted on. He was always saying about your butt is leaking, your bum is leaking, and that. And I just put in the quote that Leviticus something. No, Deuteronomy. I can't remember when. Oh, I know. I can remember. It's here. He stopped tweeting to me. Let me see. Where is it? Here we go. His last answer, I said to him. Where are you? Yeah, here we go. The Lord will smite thee with the botch of Egypt, and with the hemorrhoids, with the scab and the itch. It's Deuteronomy 28:27. It's talking about hemorrhoids in the Bible.
Oh damn!
Nice.
I know these little facts. Sometimes it's infuriating because I know so much facts that I wish I could make them coherent. I had to for tonight's chat, and in fact we covered everything I had here, which is I'm happy. Now we can talk whatever we want. Until you guys, I was hoping to finish in 6 minutes, but if you guys want, we can do an after tweet.
Okay.
I will need to head off and talk to Sandre, so I'm afraid I won't be able to go for the after.
Then we'll finish it off in 5 minutes, Christian. No problems. And we covered everything I had here, which I think was a first for my tweets. So now we can talk about anything else because it's just filler.
Well, I just want to say that when Lit is going to be in Germany, that's going to be kind of closer to me now. We're gonna have to meet up, and I'm gonna teach you a few things about self-confidence and kicking in the ass the ones that piss you off.
Oh no, that'll be fun. I think because I'll be able to see Kraut and I'll be able to see Sandre there when he comes visit me there, and then I'll be able to see other people like Reality and things like that. And I've got a friend also in Germany who I met who came to London before, and I went to meet her. I have a feeling that I'm going to have more of a social life in Germany than I've ever had in England.
I have a cousin in Germany.
Oh, nice. Whereabouts?
Well, I have a cousin in every continent on Earth.
I probably have a cousin in every goddamn continent, and I know thanks to a certain great cousin.
Well, not every continent. I was exaggerating there. I have cousins in Europe. Not Portugal, I mean Europe, outside of Portugal. Even England. I know a cousin is staying there, or stayed there last year. I don't know if she's still there. Brazil, United States, Australia. Well, that's it. Yeah, so Europe, South America, North America. South America, because I also have a cousin in Venezuela. So.
Oh no.
Man,
I have cousins in Portugal. I have cousins in Germany. I've got uncles and aunts there too. I've got second cousins and
what part of Portugal?
Uncles in Brazil. In Trás-os-Montes, generally speaking.
Do you know how close that is?
In Porto.
Yeah, Trás-os-Montes is so close to me.
Really?
It is.
Nice.
As the crow flies, it's about 30-40 kilometers. As a crow. But of course, our roads here are shit, so we have to go through Spain or through Portugal, which is even longer. So, yeah.
But I have also my aunties in various cities near Porto and Temesinda and places.
So you're Portuguese as well.
Well, my mum.
Do you know that you are not a Moor, you are a Celt?
I'm a what?
You're Celtic.
I'm a Celt.
Yeah,
Celtic.
From the Portuguese part of it, you're Celtic. You're not
Am I?
You're not the Southern Olives. You are actually the real white Portuguese.
Nice.
So yeah.
But we have also the second cousins and all that sort of thing, aunts and uncles in Brazil too, who moved from Portugal actually at one point. Then we've got cousins and such, probably that we don't know yet, but probably still exist due to certain great-grandfather who was a traveling salesman and liked women a lot. There was a point where one of my uncles had to phone up some guy and say, "Sorry, I think you're my half brother."
It
So
happens
for all we know, I might have a cousin in Japan. He went there at one point.
That is awesome.
Hell,
honestly,
I don't even
know.
I don't even remember all the places where my family is spread. I know I have some family in France, in England. I have a cousin in the States. I think I do have someone in Brazil. I don't even know further. They just kind of scattered. Yeah, they scattered all over.
Oh dear. Now, back in the day, everyone just mostly stayed in one place or they're nearabouts. Nowadays, everyone's everywhere.
Exactly.
We don't.
Yeah, but the funniest thing, my family crawled over the world around World War II.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I had an uncle that well, it was my father's uncle that lived through World War II in France. So.
Yeah.
My father went to France.
Several family members of mine who were in Germany during the war.
My father. One day I'm gonna do a live stream just telling my story, the story of my father and my mum.
That'd be nice.
My mother actually had this uncle who went to France, and there he actually worked for a Persian Shah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he dyed carpets for him, and that Shah actually gave him medals for it, which were out of real golden rubies and shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone should write the story of their family or something.
I will.
Everyone should do
probably my only monologue. I will write it up, and then when I don't have anything to do, I'll just tell the story of my dad, because it's quite interesting. He went to France when he was 15.
My granddad got all the family, the ancestry thing. He went back to, I don't know how far he went back. I never seen the damn papers, but apparently they're all in just one big wad of paper, and all they need now is just to be sorted out. They're from his father. Well, not really his father, because he was born out of wedlock. But anyway, his father, technically Mr. My
still a father.
The guy that had whose surname we have currently. He took it from his side. So yeah, and then there's my mum's side, and then there's my grandma's side. And then there's taken into account that my grandmother's father had two wives and children from different marriages, and
common here.
You could write a long book about that.
We were isolated for about 400 years, and there is all that what you just described exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a pretty long family story too, and the side and I actually told this to Carlos on my grandma's side. I'm actually in a straight line related to the Polish king Jan III Sobieski.
Which is oh man, I'm honored to have a friend that's royal.
Yeah,
okay,
and that exact grandma married a Red Army officer.
Yes. We can finish on this really good high note.
Okay.
And thank you, people that have watched us, and we will be back next Tuesday for something which I'll think about by Sunday. So, thank you for being here. Okay.